I've mopped the floors at one of Tesla's factories as well, and it was never seen as a bad thing. It was required. Elon would do it if it was required and nobody else was there.
How did that really shape your, I mean, I'm a huge Elon Musk fan, but otherwise, how did that really shape your own experience into this journey of entrepreneurship?
The coolest thing about Tesla was one, everybody, irrespective of which goal that they were in, were very clear that they had a unified goal. They were making a difference for the greater, for humankind as such, right?
If you had to pitch the T30 to somebody who's looking to buy a bike in that price range, how would you pitch to them?
The minute you take a ride on the T30, you'd be convinced that your next motorcycle might not be the T30, but will definitely be an electric motorcycle.
Today's edition of Startup to Scale Up is all about electric motorcycles. Dinesh Arjun, the co-founder and CEO of Raptee, is with me. Now, Raptee has just debuted in the Indian EV market with the Raptee T30, which is India's first high-voltage motorcycle with electric car DNA. What does all of that mean? Let me welcome Dinesh on the show. Dinesh, thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us. First of all, how does it feel to finally see the T30 out in the market?
It's been a crazy week, I should say. We've had tremendous amount of response, positive mostly, so that also helps, obviously. But it's been crazy. We've been working on this for 5 years. We've been working on really redesigning how electric vehicles are built, and it feels crazy to be in this.
So for the unversed, Dinesh, the first high voltage motorcycle with electric car DNA, can you break it down for us?
So what we've seen today in the electric two-wheeler world is that we've been adopting the architecture that we've seen come in from China mostly. That's what you see in all electric two-wheelers today in the market, right? That's largely because there's an abundance of components that are coming in from China, and there are a lot of vehicle integrators who've been able to put these components together and put products on the road. That said, there are a few really good brands who've been able to indigenize tech and build electric two-wheelers ground up for the Indian market. However, just because of the nature of the supply chain ecosystem, they've not been able to break away from the existing architecture that these scooters are generally made of. It's not to say that the components that are coming in from China are of bad quality or that the architecture is bad quality. It was built for a different use case. In China, if you look at it, and these vehicles don't go over 30 kilometers an hour, they're not expected to last more than a couple of years. But you come to this part of the world, even your 100cc motorcycles in India can do upwards of 100 kilometers an hour. But more importantly, they last a lifetime, right? It's not uncommon to see my dad buy a motorcycle, pass it on to me, and then I pass it on to my brother, right? So that's how we know. In India, that's how we've known two-wheelers. To really bring the same into electric is what we've been working towards for the last 5 years. And to do that, we realized that moving into high voltage was the answer. And to make it much more simpler, the analogy is that electric cars were also on low voltage drivetrains. If you remember, about 5-8 years ago, electric cars were small toy-like products which didn't really weren't practical replacements to petrol-powered vehicles. They didn't go as fast. It was usually a two-seater. It was very tiny, which is only for intercity commute, and you needed a battery replacement every couple of years. Fast forward today, you have you have electric cars in India which are faster than petrol-powered vehicles. They're as practical, and they no longer need a change of batteries ever so often. So we're simply bringing the same change that made electric cars better than their petrol-powered counterparts to two-wheelers, to bring an electric motorcycle that's much more fun to ride, much better performing than a petrol-powered motorcycle.
So this entire concept, I think you faced a lot of resistance initially, and a lot of people believed that perhaps this high voltage tech couldn't be adapted for bikes, for motorcycles. How did you sort of overcome that and believe in what you wanted to do?
Sure. No, largely I think the resistance was because it was never done before, right? At least when it comes to two wheelers, there again there are, if you look at the West, there are brands who've done high voltage motorcycles, but then they cost $30,000-$40,000, where they can use components that go into an electric car and make the vehicles. But if I'm trying to make a motorcycle that's a 2.5 lakh rupees or $3,000, it doesn't make sense for me to buy just one single component for $3,000, right? So obviously, it wasn't just about whether we'd be able to make it happen, but would we be able to make that at the target price that we were looking at, right?
Mm. Mm.
At Raptee, we're looking at accelerating the transition to electric mobility, which means it doesn't make sense for us to just deliver a sustainable product to a niche, but rather to the masses, which means we had to get the whatever tech that we're building at the cost that the masses would buy. And that was our vision, and that is something that we had a lot of trouble convincing our suppliers to be able to do. This is not a company that was built that could be built with just a bunch of people, right? And like a software company, this involves a lot of suppliers, vendors, and then the entire ecosystem had to work in. So to actually convince the suppliers to be able to do this at the scale was definitely a challenge. But now we're standing here as proof that when there's a will, there's definitely a way.
Absolutely. But Dinesh, why do you think that was the case? I mean, there are, very well established companies, automakers who could have possibly explored this. Why is this something that took so long until sort of you came and decided to do this?
No, perfect question. So this is again the answer to that. Well, I do answer that, right? And this is because it's been so difficult. This has also become a significant moat for us, right? That we're now pioneering in technology that tomorrow, let's say somebody else wants to kind of pitch in, it's going to take them at least a couple of years to break into this technology and come in. The underlying reason is because not only did the supply chain did not exist, but the subcomponents or the discrete components to make this did not exist. For example, let's say I want to make a motor controller for a high voltage motorcycle. You can either go buy a motor controller that exists for a car, which will again make car components very expensive, or you'll have to build it from scratch. But if you have to build it from scratch, then you'll need the discrete components that go into making a motor controller available, right? So we just to give you a scale of this challenge, we had to go speak to people like Texas Instruments and Infineon and get engineering sample level components to actually build our first prototype and then bring it to the scale, right? So it wasn't just the subcomponent supply chain, but rather the discrete components that go into these subcomponents that were also not available, right? And the reason that I believe that this was not a necessity so far is just because of the sheer uniqueness of the two-wheeler market in India, right?
Mm.
There's a reason that Indian players are the global majors when it comes to two-wheeler motorcycle manufacturing, right? When you look at cars, you always look to either the Germans or the Japanese, right? Even when it comes to scooters, you still look at the Japanese because the domestic market for scooters is Southeast Asia. But when it comes to motorcycles, the largest motorcycle brands are from India, right? Indian brands export to Latin America, to Europe, to Africa. That's because the domestic market dictates how the global motorcycle market is. And that's one of the reasons that I believe that there weren't a lot of other players or outsiders who have kind of worked onto this. And it is truly a requirement for an Indian motorcycle manufacturer, rather an Indian startup, to kind of bring the tech to where it is today. And that's why we believe we had to do it as a first in the market.
Right. And the 94 patents that you have, that probably adds to the reason why the moat for your company is so strong.
Definitely. And I'm very glad that you mentioned 94 patents, right? See, it's not simply about taking a low voltage battery out and putting a high voltage battery in. It's not as simple as just swapping out one component, right?
Right.
If you actually look at the electric car industry, the players who were on low voltage had to scrap their entire architecture to move over into high voltage. So it's not just patent over a single item, but rather the entire architecture itself. If anybody were to move into high voltage, they will have to replace the battery pack, they will have to replace the motors, the motor controller, and obviously the charger. even something as commoditized as a DC-DC converter, which is generally available off the shelf, had to be built in house. And that's one of the reasons that I always say we're arguably the most vertically integrated OEM in India today, not because we wanted to, but because we had to. Right? Even something as simple as, or rather, commoditized as a DC-DC was not available for the power requirement and the voltage requirement that we were looking for, and we had to vertically integrate that. Luckily for us, we got a ton of support from the government. We received grants since we're building this tech, and that's helped us build all of that in house as well.
So Dinesh, in those 5 years when all the R&D was going on, when you knew what you were building, but like you said, it was taking time to convince the relevant people, etc. Did you ever feel dejected? Did you ever feel, that kind of a feeling of what am I doing here?
Many a times, definitely. And I think the one thing that I usually think about, see, I think ignorance is bliss to a level, because though we knew where we wanted to go, we were really, I mean, how would I say this? We were really, we were maybe a little ignorant of what it would take to kind of get here. And that helped us solve one problem at a time. If we had thought about, let's say 3 years ago, if we had thought about the scale that we are here, the size of the factory that we have, the number of people that we employ, the amazing talent that we've got, who've joined us in the last couple of years, I think we would have definitely said, okay, this is way too much for us to handle. This is not something that we want to do, and we would have walked out, right? So maybe a little ignorant, and we were only looking at what's the next step, and that really helped us, keep moving forward.
Right. Now I'm going to ask you to rewind, Dinesh, and tell us about your journey. How did all of this start? When did you realize that you wanted to do something like this? What's been your experience?
No, definitely. So there were more than a few kind of turning points here, right? So the goal initially when we started Raptee was to never really build the entire motorcycle or build a brand, but really understand why weren't electric motorcycles there in the market, and if electric vehicles made so much sense, especially in the two-wheeler space for a market like India, why weren't people buying it? Right? These are the two fundamental questions with which Rappi started. Right? One, why were there not enough products in the market? And even with the products that were there in the market, why were people not buying it? And when we started, looking out for the answer for this, we realized that electric vehicles were sold on two main reasons. One, either total cost of ownership, or two, environmental friendliness. But these are not the two main reasons, or these are not even the few, top five reasons why somebody buys a motorcycle, or why somebody buys an automobile in India. In India, a motorcycle is probably the second most expensive purchase in the household, right? Right after the house, motorcycle is the most expensive purchase, which means that purchase has a lot more emotion riding into making that purchase than rational reasons, right? That purchase is going to define the socio-economic status of that individual, whether it's a TVS 50 or whether it's a Kawasaki, doesn't matter. That kind of dictates how that person's lifestyle is. So the only reason a person would buy an electric motorcycle is when he or she believes that the product that they're buying is a true upgrade to whatever they already have or they were planning to buy in the first place. And also, as a byproduct, it's better for the environment and cheaper to run. Not just because it's better for the environment and cheaper to run, right? So that's what we wanted to bring. And high voltage and everything that we've built over the last 5 years is a direct result of what we wanted to give our customer, right? A product that's one seen as an upgrade, feels like an upgrade, and is a lot more fun to ride than whatever they were going to buy in the first place.
Right. And if I'm not wrong, you also worked with Tesla earlier. How did that really shape your? I mean, I'm a huge Elon Musk fan, but otherwise, how did that really shape your own experience into this journey of entrepreneurship?
No, 100%. So I've been in. I mean, again, Rappi was my third venture, but I'm extremely grateful that I had the opportunity to actually, take a break from my entrepreneurship journey and then go work at a place like Tesla, right? Because I'd never really worked under bosses, so it kind of felt different. But the coolest thing about Tesla was one, everybody, irrespective of which role that they were in, were very clear that they had a unified goal. They were making a difference for the greater, like for humankind as such, right? So that's something that I've never really seen anywhere or even heard about in any company, where you can ask anybody, whether who's at the company, who's leaving the company, who's already left the company, they were truly convinced that that company was working towards a purpose that was much bigger than all of them. And I think that kind of tied everybody into kind of making sure that they put in every minute's worth of work in whatever they're doing. That's number one. Number two was, irrespective of their designation, is irrespective of what their job role is, they would never say no to getting something done if something was required, right? I've managed production lines, and I've mopped the floors at one of Tesla's factories as well, and it was never seen as a bad thing. It was required. Elon would do it if it was required and nobody else was there, right? And that drive was just crazy. It was never even, and I was able to, even think about this only after I left the company, because when we were there, it was not really seen as doing something that was, lesser than what you kind of signed up for. So I think those two things really, really helped me shape, understand how a company really needs to be, and to understand what the greater purpose of the company was, for it to ever kind of create impact at this scale.
Right. I think what you mentioned, Dinesh, is very important, whether it's Tesla or even SpaceX, that culture of being a part of something that is bigger than oneself is what we see, in those companies. That kind of culture, bringing it into Raptee, into an Indian company that you're building, was it difficult?
Um, no, I mean, again, one thing, I think the biggest asset that we've built over the last 5 years is the team, right? Everybody here has, if I'm being very honest to myself, everybody here in the company has had better offers, have had offers from bigger companies, but they decided to stick in because they believe that we're actually working on something great, right? And that true kind of sense of innovating beyond what's out there already, I think kept the team together. And that was also because, not just me, I mean, my co-founders and I, but also the team who kind of came in after that, kind of kept this going, kept this college kind of culture where everybody, there's no walls, there's no rooms. We still don't have any cubicles in office. That's why it took me like so much time to find a place to kind of sit down before I can turn on my camera like this. But that kind of helps truly break down the metaphorical walls as well, and then get teams working together easily. So I cannot take even 10% credit for that. I think the teams kind of really I mean, built the culture of Raptee, and it's phenomenal. I mean, every day I walk into the office, even if I'm not in the best of moods, just looking at everybody just hustling kind of gets you into the group. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what's the long-term vision? Where do you want to take Raptee?
Sure. No, I think more than from a business point of view, the biggest thing that we have at Raptee is kind of is, again, this is something that I borrowed from Elon, is pace of innovation, right? It's not about whether you're innovating or not, but rather how fast are you innovating, how fast are you pushing the boundaries of innovation. I truly believe high voltage drivetrain that we built here is a result of that, and we want to continue down this path of pushing the boundaries of science and technology, and that's where our true north is. How many vehicles we're going to put on the road, how many customers we're serving, everything will be a result of that. And whether we do we do go IPO, or we where that takes us is again going to be a result of that. But our true north is to ensure that we keep innovating in terms of what the customer really wants, and how can that really accelerate the transition into sustainable energy from a masses point of view, but not just I mean, just not a niche. Yeah.
Can you take us through some numbers? I mean, anything you can tell us in terms of path to profitability? How do you see that panning out? Kind of sales, any targets, the kind of response that you've got so far?
Sure. So one of the reasons that we started out with this mid-premium product is because of obviously costs. The other thing is obviously we wanted to build a product where we could truly prove that electric motorcycles can be better than petrol-powered motorcycles. Hence, we started out with a mid-premium product, and our goal is to kind of not stay at this. I still wouldn't call it. It is a niche, but it's big enough of a niche that we're starting to create impact right from day one. But the goal for us is to go for a mass market product as well. However, one obviously this product line helps us helps create an aspirational brand around us, and also tell the world that electric motorcycles don't really have to be boring. They can be as good, if not better, than a petrol-powered motorcycle. And number two, obviously, this helps us be at a price point where we're on par in terms of performance, if not better, as well as be on par in terms of price, without selling a product below BOM cost or selling a product at a loss. That's one of the reasons that we're starting off with the mid-premium segment. If we wanted to, we could have started off with a product that starts at 1.5 lakh rupees, which means at that point we would have been making a loss with every product. So yes. So the goal for us is to never sell a product at a loss, but obviously profitability will be built over a period of time, not on day one.
Right. So what kind of visibility do you have in terms of the newer, models that you're looking to launch, and over what period of time are we looking at?
Perfect. So one of the other things that again we've been learning a lot from the existing companies, the startups that came before us and have created some really amazing products. So one of the other learnings from that is that we shouldn't be treated as a one product company, and we're very cognizant of that. So we do have a few products in the pipeline. So right after our motorcycles launch, in about 12 months' time, there will be another product, which will be based on the same platform, but targeting a different demographic. And 12 months following that is when we will come out with our next product, which will be priced significantly lower than this, which will cater to the masses, which is the 150cc segment. So you can be assured that we'll come up with one new product every 12 to 18 months, and that's what our vision is. And the pipeline is already there, and our teams are working towards that.
Right. So if you had to pitch the T30 to somebody who's looking to buy a bike in that price range, how would you pitch to them at this point?
I think this is the minute the minute you take a ride on the T30, you'll be convinced that your next motorcycle might not be the T30, but will definitely be an electric motorcycle. And that's what T30 brings to the world of motorcycling. This is truly an upgrade to motorcycling in every which way. This is a lot more fun. And fun is not just in terms of performance, in terms of comfort, in terms of where this experience will take you and how you think about motorcycling in general. So yes, so that's how I'd describe the T30.
All right. So Dinesh, now let's get to the rapid fire segment. I'll ask you a few quick questions and quick answers from you as well.
Sure.
One word to describe Raptee.
Pace of innovation. There's 3 words technically, but yeah.
Okay. Your favorite bike besides Raptee, of course.
My favorite bike besides Raptee, my Thunderbird, because that was my first bike that I bought about when I was 18. So yes, 10 years ago. So yes, the Thunderbird.
Right. Most innovative feature on the T30.
The high voltage architecture.
What's the most memorable moment in Raptee's journey so far that you had?
There have been quite a few. I think the product launch.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one thing that you love about your job.
I can put my hands into different teams and rather talk to different teams and contribute at different levels without having to kind of continue going forward with just doing that. So today, as CEO, I can contribute to technical, I can contribute to development, I can contribute to production, and not really worry about it because we've built an awesome team. So yeah.
All right, Dinesh, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us and wishing you all the very best.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.